What if I told you that you can create a new, better reality for yourself, a new life for yourself in just 77 days? It's absolutely true. And although it may not be easy, it's actually also very simple. If you start moving in a certain way in your life, change the way you are going about certain things, and learn about certain principles, you could be looking at a completely different trajectory and life, again, in as little as 77 days. In fact, the methods and the techniques I'm going to be giving you in this video are the exact ones that Napoleon Hill himself said that they work so quickly and so effectively that when he first used them, they scared him. And again, Napoleon Hill went around learning about the methods, the strategies, the thinking, and how the most successful people of that time, of that era, moved. And we're talking about people like Thomas Edison and other big giants of industry, people who were geniuses, and so on. And when Napoleon Hill started applying what he learned himself, he actually was so blown away by how effective and how quickly, which we'll get into, it worked. So in this video, we're not only going to be going over the idea and the strategy behind this, but I'm also going to be giving you a challenge of the next 77 days so you can start experiencing this yourself. Now, what I can say is that if you truly absorb this video, really open your mind to these concepts, do the work and trust the process, you will start to experience changes in your life. Again, what we will be tapping into are laws. They're not theories. These are as effective and finely tuned as the law of gravity is on the physical plane. If I drop an apple off my balcony, will you bet against it falling to the ground? No, because you know of the law of gravity and how it acts upon the physical plane, and you have enough confidence in it to know that the apple every single time is going to fall to the ground. The principles that I'm going to teach you and help you activate in your favor in this video are just as precise, mathematical, and finely tuned as that. You might just not be aware of them operating in the background because they're mainly non-physical laws instead of physical ones, but they work in the same way with the same level of precision. So without further ado, let's jump into what these principles are. What is this thing that works so quickly, so effectively, so efficiently that it actually scared Napoleon Hill when he first used it? And how can you start using it yourself over these next 77 days to quite literally transform your life? So before we go over exactly what you're going to do, we're going to go over why what you're going to do is going to work and how this reality that you're in actually operates. Because if you don't have this background, if you don't understand what's going on here, it's going to be very hard to buy into what we're going to go over later. Here is one of the main things. Our reality, this reality that you exist in, this thing that we operate in from the day to day, is not made up in the ways that you've been taught. Most of us have been taught and conditioned just in the physical world. And what if I was to tell you that the physical world actually only represents and accounts for 0.000001% of reality? It has been said that if you were actually to remove all of the empty space and energy from every single person on the planet, and you could take all of the physical matter that was left and fit it into a tiny sugar cube. And so our reality, our universe, whatever you want to call it, is actually made up of 99.999999% empty space or energy. Again, if you were to remove all of this empty space and energy, you would be left with a tiny amount of physical matter reality left. If you were to remove it from the full universe, it would be the same thing. There are those who have said you could fit the full amount of physical matter in the reality into the tip of a pin. Again, we get different estimations, sugar cube, tip of a pin, whatever else. The point is it's very small in comparison to that 99.9+% of what this reality is actually made up of, which is empty space and energy. Essentially, you can call the physical what we know as the outer world, and this 99.9+% that is empty space and energy as the inner world. And the outer world follows the inner world. That tiny percentage is born out of that bigger percentage. The physical comes from the non-physical. Now, one other thing to understand that's going to help you relate to this in a more practical way is that you are actually a three-part being. You're not just physical, you are also non-physical, and there are non-physical aspects of you that you probably have not been consciously activating. That in this challenge, I'm going to help you consciously activate, which is going to allow you to start activating the principle that frightened Napoleon Hill with how effective and how fast it began to work. You see, not only are you physical, you also have a mental and spiritual side of you. you. And it is this mental and spiritual side of you that, if you are not activating, is the reason you are struggling so much in life, if you are, or you're stuck, or you're blocked. Because the mental and spiritual is where you gain access to that 99.9+% of what reality is actually made up of. But most people are only operating from the physical, which is the 0.00001% of reality. You could also call the mental and spiritual part of yourself the inner world, like I mentioned earlier, and the physical part the outer. Again, the outer world, the physical, follows the inner world. Another way of saying it, whatever causes are activated in the inner world on the mental and spiritual creates effects on the physical. So what actually creates reality? What connects us to that 99.9+%, which is our inner world? Well, it's the following. It's your thoughts. It's your attitudes, it's your vibration, it's your energy, it's your intentions, your goals, your dreams, desires, and so on. And it is what you do from these places in this realm that will absolutely determine what shows up in your physical world. This is why we have sayings from, again, some of the most successful and wisest people that go along the lines of, you get what you think about, and I would also add feel about, most of the time. Or another one of my favorites, have more faith in the vision than your current physical circumstances. You see, another thing to understand is that you are actually always activating the 99.9+% of yourself. You are always doing something on the mental and spiritual plane, but if you're not aware of the existence of that, then what is it you're actually doing on those planes of existence? Well, for most people, they default into a very negative place and so start creating very negative effects in their physical world. They're thinking negatively, they're visualizing negatively, they're catastrophizing and always thinking of the worst possible outcome. On the spiritual side, which is also the emotional or energetic side, which is energy and motion, they're in guilt and shame and disappointment and apathy and pride and anger and what we would consider lower levels of consciousness, lower levels of energy, more times than not. And because of this, because these are the causes being activated, being dwelt on in the inner world, they are creating the equivalent corresponding effects of those things in the physical, in the form of people, in the form of opportunities, in this case, negative opportunities, events, and so on. Now, this brings us to a principle, which is why things can radically shift for you if you just start taking conscious control of this, and this is called the quantum to Newtonian transition point. Now, the quantum to Newtonian transition point states that 6 to 8 weeks of concentrated particle flow leads to dramatic changes in the physical world. And it is this principle in particular that we will be looking to activate over these next 77 days. Now, notice that I said that concentrated particle flow will lead to dramatic changes in the physical world. I did not say spotty particle flow. I did not say unfocused particle flow. I did not say stop-start particle flow. I said concentrated. I said focused particle flow in a particular direction will lead to dramatic changes in the physical. And so unless you are focusing on something in a particular direction like a laser beam, unless you are dwelling in very particular high conscious things on the mental and spiritual, unless you are doing that, you are not going to get the physical effects that you want. But if you are doing that, if you are really putting more attention on your thoughts, on your feelings, on your emotion, on the mental and spiritual, you will start to change the effects and the results that come through in the physical. It has to by law. It is as predictable and again finely tuned as gravity is in the physical. Essentially, what is your attention on most of the time in the mental and spiritual plane of your existence? It doesn't matter if you're doing it unconsciously or consciously. If you are unconsciously giving your attention to things on these planes that again are negative, like most people do, the universe does not care. It will just continue to give you more of that and to correspond that on the physical plane. We all know cause and effect because we learned about it from a physical viewpoint, but cause and effect also operates on the higher planes. And again, the cause and effect at a higher level is the causes you are dwelling in and activating in the mental and spiritual plane creates the effects that you are experiencing in the physical. Meaning, if you are thinking negatively, feeling negatively, you will experience physical effects that are negative. But on the other end of the spectrum, and just to keep this very, very stupidly simple, if you are thinking positively and feeling positively most of the time, emotionally higher levels of consciousness, you will then experience the same kind of effects, more positive effects on the physical. This is cause and effect at a higher level. You have to understand that your physical reality is actually an energetic history. It is an inner world history. What you have been dwelling on for a consistent amount of time will be reproduced in the physical and create what we know as an energetic history. All that you're looking around at in your physical world, you're sensing, you're perceiving, is simply just a history of what you have been entertaining on the mental and spiritual planes for however long. Again, 6 to 8 weeks of concentrated particle flow. There is a lag time between what you're thinking and feeling showing up in the physical. But 6 to 8 weeks is not a long amount of time for dramatic changes in the physical. But again, you need concentrated particle flow, which is the key here, which is what I'm going to show you how to do in this video. Okay, so now you know a little bit more of how our reality is operating. And again, for some of you may have heard me talk about the 99.9+%. And guess what? Every time you hear me talk about this, it is just reiterating and reinforcing this idea and allowing you to absorb it even deeper. So it is absolutely a good thing. For some of you, it might be this is the first time you're hearing it. But it's so crucially important because if we are just running our gears and we're trying to affect the physical from the physical, we're going to make very little progress. But if we try and affect the physical from the thing that creates the physical, the thing that the physical is born out of, the inner world, the spiritual and the mental planes of existence, remembering that the outer world follows the inner world, we're going to start seeing changes very quickly. So the key here is we want to start focusing more on what we do want, what we truly are aligned to, and to tune out what we don't want. Again, if we're focusing on what we want 1 second, then what we don't want, then what we want, then what we don't want, and then what we don't want, then what we don't want, then a little bit of what we want, then what we don't want, is that concentrated particle flow? Or is that stop-start particle flow? In the same way, that momentum builds with this energy, think of it like an energy ball that is building. And the more you're giving this energy to this energy ball, let's say you're transmitting like a laser beam into this energy ball, and so long as that energy stays connected, this energy ball is expanding. As its energy increases, it doesn't just expand at the same rate, it gains exponential growth, meaning it starts expanding at a more rapid rate. It almost becomes logarithmic. It just starts gaining to multiples of itself over and over again quicker. But if you cut off the power and the energy, it starts to deflate again and starts to go down till eventually that momentum has been cut off. And so that's why we need concentrated particle flow. You cannot just have particle flow going in for a minute and expect new results if for the rest of the time your particle flow is going in a completely different direction. We need concentrated particle flow in a very particular direction. So how do we do that? Now, the way we're going to do that is through what's called a dream, DCA, objectives, and action steps. Now, this is an incredibly powerful formula that has actually been used by secret societies for a very, very long time, but they use it in a very particular way. You'll find other methods like this out in the mainstream, but it's missing very key ingredients. Now, this is a whole video in and of itself, and I know some of you will have watched it already, but if you haven't, after this video, I highly recommend you go watch this. In fact, at the end of this video, I will give you the option to go watch this video next, because it's going to give you the formula of how you can develop a dream and then a definite chief aim, concentrated particle flow, definite chief aim, meaning singular aim, and how to really allow yourself to start focusing in on that like a laser beam and tune out the noise that has been causing you to be distracted and not produce what you want in the physical world because your spiritual and mental world is thinking about all this other stuff that's not helpful. So that video is going to help you do that, because if we did it here again, this video would be over an hour long, and we don't want that. But one of the reasons you want to do this, guys, is because you can't hit a target you can't see or one you are unaware of. So this is a crucial step. If you don't pick a focus, you will be unfocused, or you will get hooked into focuses that you didn't choose, which can be even more dangerous. If you don't have a focus, you'll find that there are plenty of corporations, there are plenty of politicians, there are plenty of entities that will happily give you a focus for you, and it's almost never going to be to your benefit, but absolutely to theirs. Now, once you do have this focus, there are 2 tools I'm going to give you in this video that are going to make such a huge difference as you go on this challenge over these next 77 days. The first one is what we call the positive confirmation journal. You see, what's going to start happening as you focus now like a laser beam on your dream and your DCA in a very particular direction, you now are aware of the influence your inner world, your mental and spiritual planes of existence have, how reality is made up of 99.9+%, empty space, energy, vibration, frequency, all of this kind of stuff. Things are going to change. things are going to shift because you are creating new effects because you are activating different causes on these planes of existence. So by law, things will have to start shifting because up until this point, if you haven't been doing things differently, you've just been creating the same thing over and over again. That's why things may seem mundane, or you maybe just get more drama in your life or whatever else. One thing we want to do as you go on this journey is we want to allow your mind to start buying into this as well. Now, your mind is very analytical, it's very linear, and so it's going to have trouble buying into this unless you train it to do so. And the Positive Confirmation Journal is the tool that will help you do this. And so what you do is as you go on this journey in these 77 days, anything that reaffirms and reiterates or seems to be a byproduct of what you are doing from this video of the journey you're going on, you are going to write out in this journal. Meaning, wow, I started doing this and 5 days in, this really random event that helped me along the journey started to come in. Or this person I'd never met before, I ran into the grocery store and it seems like a promising avenue for my business. Or, whatever it is, this sign came in that told me to go look at this, which led me to this, which led me to this, which gave me this huge insight I wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't followed that pathway. Things like this are going to start occurring. Some people call them synchronicities, serendipitous events, but these things will absolutely start happening when you do this right. Now, the reason you want to capture these things, because it might seem silly and you just want to get lost in kind of the enjoyment of it, but the reason you want to capture it, because especially if you're new to this, you may forget what actually has helped you to start gaining the transformation you will now be experiencing in your life. And when you forget about that, you will go back to the linear analytical thinking that most people fall into, and you will again go back into that 0.00001% of what reality is made up of, which is physical matter reality, which operates linearly. And so if you create this Positive Confirmation Journal, you're gonna have all of this evidence that what you are doing is working. It just won't happen in a linear way. And so when you start having doubts, when you forget the process and the value of the process and how impactful it is, you can go, wait a second, don't I have a journal filled with evidence of how valuable this is? Let me go look back at that. This, I cannot tell you how valuable this is on the journey. Again, we take clients through a program where we do this, and they have so many by the end, and they just refer back to it when they're moving a little bit off course, when their focused particle flow is getting a little unfocused because they're getting distracted by something or they're being hooked into something that's taking them off path. This Positive Confirmation Journal is going to be your ticket to staying focused on path and on destination, and reminding you of the powerful processes you're activating. So first thing, Positive Confirmation Journal. I don't have mine on me right now at the filming setup, but I just have a small one. It has, I think, a Buddha on it. It's a tiny little pocket journal that I write in, and I've gone through about 5 or 6 of these at this point, but just have a little tiny journal, I recommend at least, that you can take with you, that's easy to take with you, and very accessible. Now, the next tool I'm going to give you is another very crucial one that is going to be massive in helping you maintain the concentrated particle flow, the focused particle flow consistently over these 77 days and beyond. And it's also going to help you remove the distractions. And it's something I've gone over before, but I simply call it the mental diet. You see, everything you're exposing yourself to has a resonance, it has an energy, and it influences you in some way. And a lot of people are watching, really drama-based TV shows. They're watching the news. They're consuming content, whether it's through reading, audio, visual, speaking to people, gossiping, whatever it is, that is creating an unfocused particle flow. Understand that whatever you are engaged in any moment in time is causing you to activate something on this mental and spiritual plane. Like I said, whether you're doing it unconsciously or consciously does not matter. It is activated regardless. And every moment you are activating something. And so if you, for 30 seconds, you're thinking about what you want and you're focusing like like a laser beam on what you want, that's great. You're activating now on those planes. But then if you turn around and then go watch the news and they're catastrophizing and you're like, oh my God, the world sucks and the world's on fire, right? Or then you go to your friend and you gossip about the other friend, or you go do X, Y, or Z, what are you now activating on the mental and spiritual planes of your existence? Probably not an energy that's focused or directed towards what it is you actually want, and are more at a lower level of consciousness. And so the mental diet is going to go a long way to helping you stay on path and actually influence yourself positively with things that are going to help you to get to where you want to go. And so in the same way that if you have a physical diet and you're working out and you want to get stronger, you don't eat junk food because you know it won't help you get to your goal, we also want to do that for the mental and spiritual world and have a mental consumption diet, a digital diet that actually supports us and doesn't deter us or move us away from our goal. And so if you are consuming junk media that comes with very junk levels of energy, lower levels of consciousness, you need to get that out of your diet because it is not going to support you in building the muscles that are going to allow you to get the goal you want to get or transform your life. And so what I recommend you do is to start making a list of things you can start to gradually or even immediately remove from your life that you know, and you know it, if you're being honest with yourself, are contributing to a junk mental diet or spiritual diet. Again, if you're watching things like the news, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I would definitely take a look at that and perhaps get that out of there. If you are gossiping all the time, perhaps get that out of there. If you notice you're watching things that have to do with drama a lot, if you're watching a lot of things that seem to waste your time and you don't feel so great after watching them, you might want to consider removing those things. Now, on the flip side, what you can do also is start adding some things that do the opposite, adding things that help you feel really good, higher in consciousness, help you think better. A lot of great ways to do this are books, because there are a lot of books that are calibrated at high levels of consciousness and also will help you think better thoughts, right? There's so many books out there like that. There are less movies, although they do exist. I've given these examples before. You have Matrix, you have Powder, Conversations with God, Peaceful Warrior. Conversation with God and Peaceful Warrior are both books as well. There's so many of those out there for books, less with media. Videos like this, consuming content like this from creators that are aiming to help, you raise your consciousness, help you transform your life is another good one as well. But you want to make sure that your mental diet, your spiritual diet is as clean as possible. Because if it is, then it's going to assist you in remaining concentrated and having that concentrated particle flow in the direction you want to go. It's going to help you dwell in the inner world on the causes you need to dwell in to create the effects you're looking to create in your outer world or physical life. So positive confirmation journal and clean up your mental diet. Now, one other thing I want to add here is if you fall off, don't worry. Like if you're cleaning up your mental diet and you're, shit, I watched the news for 30 minutes. Don't worry. This is not about beating yourself up, because what happens if you do that? Then you just took your mental diet to a place of guilt and shame and apathy and all this kind of stuff. It's not what we're looking to do here. If you fall off the wagon, if you fall off the horse, the name of the game is recovery. How quickly can you get back on? How quickly can you just recover? If it takes you a day, it takes you a day. If it takes you 30 minutes, it takes you 30 minutes. Just understand that the more you practice this, the more you wake up and go, wait a second, I got hooked into a bad mental diet or whatever else, the quicker you will get at that, the more you start to recover. So the name of the game is not to be perfect, whatever that means, or to somehow be so good at doing this when your whole life you haven't been doing this. It's like giving someone a violin and being disappointed when they're not able to play it like an expert. It's the same with this. You just don't have to practice yet. So if you fall off the horse after 30 seconds, just try and remind yourself to recover as quickly as possible. And I promise you, if you go in that way, you'll get better and better and better at this, to the point where every single time you fall off, you'll know and be able to get yourself back on very quickly and stay there for longer periods of time. So when you have an aim, like we talked about previously, and you also do these two exercises, opportunities are absolutely going to start presenting themselves from seemingly nowhere in your life. They will start presenting themselves in what we call a non-linear way from the unknown. And so we need to talk about what you need to do when that starts occurring. So now we need to talk about inspired action, because yes, you will need to take action. If you want physical things in your physical life, you will need to do physical things. I know I said 99.9+% is the mental and the spiritual, but you still have a physical. It is not redundant. It is not useless. It is not here by a happen chance. It is still here. It is still useful. It is still something you need to act upon. But when you have all of these things lined up, the dream, the DCA, and everything else, when you understand that the outer world follows the inner, and you're cleaning up the mental diet, you're taking down the positive confirmations, you will also start to notice that you are getting these intuitive, inspirational ideas and actions, and then you need to start taking them. Now, because you are tuning into something new, the way in which you move will most likely be different than how you've moved before. But it is how you moved before which has created whatever you are living through right now. Remember, it is an energetic history. So if you want to continue creating what you've already created, then keep doing what you've been doing. And that's fine, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to create something new, that's more expansive, that's more aligned, then you're going to have to take the inspired actions that are most likely, again, going to be slightly to vastly different than how you were moving before, which created what's here now. So now opportunities will start coming up in your life, and I highly encourage you to follow through on the ones that resonate with you. Now, the reason you want to follow through on the ones that resonate with you, because again, you are calibrating your inner world differently to a new frequency, we can say. And there will be certain things that resonate or feel right according to that frequency. And that means these things have come about because you've been putting out that energy. And again, I recommend that you follow through with them. Because again, they're not going to force themselves on you. You are going to have to make the free will decision and choice to engage with this new thing that's come into your life. And again, so long as it feels right to do so, when you're in that high conscious place, my recommendation, my invitation is to go ahead and do it. Again, you cannot just sit on the couch and expect things to happen. You are co-creating. You are a co-creator with the universe, with God, with source, whatever you want to call it. And so you will need to take this final step over these 77 days and beyond if you want these things to materialize. But again, when you do what we went over before, you will absolutely see opportunities. New opportunities present themselves, new events, new people. All this kind of stuff start happening in your outside world. You'll see new signs come in. You'll see new synchronicities. Things will start to get easier and more effortless, but you will still have to put energy forward in the physical. The difference is it will most likely be very pleasurable, very feeling good energy. Again, the universe can line things up for you, present you a whole new level of opportunity from seemingly nowhere, new people, events, but you didn't have to act upon it. You didn't have to crystallize the inspiration in the physical through action. Now, these actions, again, are going to be calibrated and finely tuned, so they will have a massive impact in your life. It's not going to be like before where you were guessing and throwing everything against the wall hoping it will stick. These will be things that are directly aligned and resonate with the energy you're now giving off. And so the impact they have in your life will be far greater than if you were just doing the, shotgun approach where it's just throwing everything against the wall, hoping it will stick, which in my eyes is a terrible approach. Again, these actions you'll be led to from inspiration are not random. They are intentional. They are finely tuned specifically to what you have been sending out. They are essentially the best next possible steps specifically for you. Now, if you do all of this to the best of your ability for 77 days, I know things will begin to shift. Again, you may fall off, you may make mistakes and so on, but if you keep going, if you stay in the room, you do your best, you will see a lot of progress. For me, I have seen this process in action so many times, more times than I can count, to great success as I take clients through a reality creation program where we do this at the highest level with coaching, accountability, the best tools, and so on. And the results they get are absolutely phenomenal, whether it's being from going to making just a few $1,000s a month to over $20,000 in a month just a few months later. That actually happened to one of our recent clients. His name is Tyson. To whether it's attracting in a life partner in the most synchronistic way from seemingly nowhere and having just had their first child together recently, which is again another result that one of my clients got not so long ago. Amazing things begin to happen when you understand the process, then start to do the work and trust that process. Now, if you want personalized mentorship and guidance with reality creation through coaching and a system that is proven to work, you can learn more about ours through the first link in the video description down below. You'll also find out how it's been working for others. There'll be plenty of people who speak about their experience through it on that page, and then just see if it's a good fit for you if you're ready to truly commit to changing your life. Now, again, one of the most important parts here is to have an aim, is to set up your dream, your DCA, and so on through the formula I mentioned earlier. So if you have not done that yet, or it's your first time hearing about this, I really invite you to go watch this video next, where I just give it to you. I give you the full formula, the thinking behind it, how to start implementing it, and again, with what you've learned in this video combined with that, you're going to be flying over these next 77 days.